Ever since the Railmaster was introduced back in 1957, it failed to gain much popularity with the public. The biggest problem was that the Railmaster had to compete against two of its incredible siblings released at the same time from Omega, the Seamaster 300 and the Speedmaster, both of them iconic watches today. You see, the Railmaster was a specific watch designed for railway workers, engineers, scientists and the like. It featured a movement that was encased in a Faraday cage to help protect against magnetism, thus maintaining accuracy under stressful environments. The problem is, 6 years later in 1963, Omega stopped producing the Railmaster due to the lack of public interest and popularity. And that's a damn shame. Now fast forward to 2003, and the Railmaster was reintroduced in an Aquaterra style case with an exhibition caseback. But by doing so, they nullified its magnetic properties and basically its overall intended purpose. So once again, this watch was competing against its much more popular siblings, the Seamaster and the Speedmaster. And 9 years later in 2012, Omega ceased production of the Railmaster once again. Although for a short period of time, they did produce one variant called the Railmaster XXL, a chronometer. It's basically a huge 49mm case, but put all that aside, we fast forward now to 2017. The Railmaster was released once again in a trilogy pack along its other siblings, the Seamaster 300 and the Speedmaster. And in true form designs from 1957, the only difference, they used modern materials and today's tech. And I tell you what, people loved them. But this is where things get exciting. See, Omega did a very bold move and released another variant at the same time. This 40mm Railmaster housed in an Aquaterra style case with not one polished surface anywhere. Not on the bracelet, not on the case, nowhere. They also reintroduced the solid caseback as in the original 1957 model, as a throwback to remind us that this watch was actually intended for a specific purpose, highly tolerant to magnetic fields. In saying that, the model that I've got here in my hands, it features one of Omega's recent masterpieces, the caliber 8806, with all its bells and whistles. It's a master coaxial chronometer. It has a SI14 silicon balance spring, Omega free sprung balance, coaxial escapement, excellent shock protection to say the least. And that silicon hairspring offers 15,000 Gauss of anti-magnetic protection. That's huge. As compared to the original 1957 design, that is massive. So ideally, this watch doesn't even need a solid caseback, but the fact that they introduced it in this model is a very nice touch. The inclusion of that solid caseback affects the overall height and thickness of this watch in a very positive way. Coming in at just over 12.5mm height, there's a little bit more of a nicer experience on the wrist. Again, another throwback to the past when watches had thinner profiles and they sat just that little bit nicer on the wrist compared to our modern day counterparts. Now with all this technical advancement of this movement, the coaxial escapement, the free sprung balance, the 55-hour power reserve, the silicon hairspring, this watch not only meets the COSC standards, but it also exceeds them as a fully cased up watch. It fulfills the Metis criteria for accuracy, a very cool touch from Omega. Now I did mention that the watch is completely brushed in stainless steel on the case, the bracelet and every visible surface, and then when you look at that dial, you encounter more stainless steel meticulously brushed in a vertical fashion. It changes its mood throughout the day, and just like a chameleon changes and blends into its environment, this thing here changes and gives you a different feeling. It's superb. You gotta take your hat off to Omega for bringing something new and something fresh into a neglected and underappreciated design from yesteryear. It's timepieces like this that continues to ignite the excitement in my heart for horology. Not only reissuing an old watch into a new modern Aquaterra style case and adorning it with a modern coat of stainless steel and vintage accents, no, much more than that. Recreating something new, something fresh, and probably one of Omega's best kept secrets as far as price is concerned, when all things are considered. When we look at the heart of the watch, its driving force, the technological advancements over other watch manufacturers at the equivalent price point, I can't think of another watch from any established watch manufacturer that can compete with this timepiece. This is a Railmaster in a Seamaster case. That's a true master chronometer. Well done, Omega, seriously well done. Now you're probably thinking right now, what about any potential faults or flaws in the design? Are there any? To be honest, I've never seen a watch to date that's perfect. And although many of the watches really come close, there's always that one or two things that are gonna bug the living daylights out of us, thinking, gee, I wish they had added this or refined that, then this would be truly the ultimate timepiece. But sadly, that's the case with every watch. There is no perfect watch. But when it comes to this watch here, what would I like to see changed, if anything? Well, for me, first and foremost, that bracelet. Now, although the bracelet is extremely comfortable and very well refined, it's so well finished, there are three things that bug me about this unit. Number one, the fact that this is a sequential closer twin trigger double deployant. Now, I know the comfort factor is great, but having to close one side before the other, or else it doesn't work, that's a bit of a bummer. That could create a bit of a problem to certain people. But the fact that it's got ceramic bearings and finished meticulously and the tolerances are so good, it gives the wearer a reassurance of extremely long service life. So that's pretty cool. But the lack of micro adjustability can present a problem as the wrist expands throughout the day. But here, Omega has offered two solutions. The watch is supplied with two half links to allow the user to gain as close a fit as possible. And option number two, wear the bracelet a little bit loose, you mug, and stop complaining. Problem solved. But the third thing that bugs me about this bracelet and every Omega bracelet is those end links. The attachment of these end links to the body always have these two little tongues that offer rigidity and stronger support in the connection. I get it, but every other watch manufacturer can solve this problem and create a solid connection to the body without these silly little tongues that seem to scratch the back of the case. So I'm sure Omega can solve this problem here as well. Alright, let's forget about the bracelet's shortcomings. After all, it is an amazingly comfortable experience on the wrist. What about the watch head itself? Is there anything that doesn't tickle my fancy? Well, no, and that's a solid no. But if I had to be critical, I'm not a big fan of conical crowns. You see, personally, I would have preferred a standard tube here, but that's me. That's just me. There's a very refreshing look that comes from that vertically brushed stainless steel dial. The texture is to die for. The crisp fine printing of the railway track minute markers and the crosshairs are beautifully accompanied by 12, 3, 6 and 9 Arabics. This is excellent use of dead space by using symmetry and balance. Those aggressive triangle tooth-like indices feature some of the best faux patina I've ever seen by any watch manufacturer. They're really well done, and not only does it maintain class, but I think it was the right design choice here. I think Omega has somewhat unintentionally designed a watch here as a secondary issue from their original Railmaster design. Something a little bit more fun, modern, maybe light-hearted, and yet it's amazingly beautiful. And I honestly believe that in doing so, they've created a modern masterpiece that might one day go on to be a future classic. A watch that's designed so nicely and so balanced that it looks like it will stand the test of time. Pun intended. You know what? In today's world of watch affordability and luxury watches with ever increasing prices, this may be one of Omega's best kept secrets. One of their biggest modern day bargains, especially on the pre-owned market. A watch jam-packed with goodness and love, excellent dimensions, wonderful wearability and everything wholesome that comes out of Switzerland. With all the quality brushing and satin finishing on this watch, this timepiece quietly screams discretion. It's not obvious, it's not in your face, so to speak. We know in the world of horology there's fun watches, there's serious watches, there's bold watches, there's blingy watches, but this piece here is a gentleman amongst watches. It's boasting nothing and yet calmly and quietly not needing to. It's suited up and yet at the same time it's dressed down. What a wonderful timepiece. All I can say to Omega for this watch is thank you for creating this. Seriously, thank you.